Hello everybody, my name is Zach, aka the Weather Gamer. This is going to be WWC D-League's post-draft power rankings from my perspective. So, like I said, I don't have enough time in my schedule to give D-League all the videos that it deserves. So I'm going to do the ones that I can. And one of those that I can is the, hang on, I gotta close some things here. Too many things open. One of those that I can do is the post-draft PRs. I'm actually not an analyst for D-League. Just again, I don't have time to do it. Nikki and Damien are going to handle that for me, which I'm very, very grateful for. But this is going to be kind of my thoughts on just post-draft, who I think are there. You guys can see most of the rosters. They're not all there because of the way this thing is set up. But I'm going to slide this over here. I'm going to use this prep help tool that I have just to kind of show you guys why I think the rosters are the way they are. I'm going to start with 16, work my way up. And I don't want any of the coaches to feel bad. First and foremost, don't feel bad because I ranked you 16 or Damien or Nikki ranked you 16. Like, just this is initial gut reaction. This, for the most part, like, I don't know how you guys play in League. I know how Penguin plays. I know how Geiran plays. I know how Rysachi plays. I know how Zippy plays. I know how Marse plays. I know how Crow plays. I know how AV plays, I know how MommaNeesh plays, and I know how Luka plays. So, of the 12 or 16 coaches, I know how 9 of them play. I don't know how the other 7 of you play, other than 1 or 2 matches that I saw on your application. So please, don't feel bad if I rank you low, because it's solely ranked on your team composition and team composition alone. And of course, my phone is making noise. Okay. Yeah, it's because YouTube shenanigans. Anyways, so the team that I think has the worst draft, in my opinion, and again, please don't take this harshly, but I think the worst draft has to go to the New York Necrozmas and Photon, and I'm really sorry, Photon, but I'll show you why here. I mean, Mega Aggron, fat. Clefable, fat. Like, that is really annoying. That's almost as annoying as regen Alomomola wish passing into Mega Aggron. Volcarona is definitely a setup threat. Shaman, I love. Everybody knows I love Shaman. I'm one of the few people that prefers Shaman over some other grass types. Donphan is a very solid rocker. Ditto is kind of a one-trick pony where you're forced to run. You basically run Scarf. Gorobus isn't really. I mean, yeah, it's a shell smasher. You have Latios, which hits very hard. Zapdos is very defensive. Ambipom I just got whooped by. Skuntank is a niche defogger, and Sneasel is Weavile with an Eviolite. But, so here you can kind of see, first and foremost, the first thing that stands out to me is, look at column L, your speed stats. 50, 60, 100, 150, 48, 52, 110, 100, 115, 115. So you do have 2 115s. That's nice. That's pretty decent top-end speed. It's not the super top-end like your Jolteon, your Tapu Koko, your Aerodactyl, Ribombee, Greninja, like the things over 120. But that's not bad to have 115. 115 to 110 is a nice gap. 110 to 100 is a nice gap. That's pretty okay. I forget who said it to me, but someone once said try to keep 13 points or less between your speed tier gaps, because that allows you to that forces your opponents to run like Timid and Jolly over Adamant and Modest in some cases. Sorry, I'm talking to Luka real quick because I forgot to switch to Do Not Disturb when I'm recording. Do not disturb. I am recording. And AB. Yes, okay. So I'm not going to look at any more messages now. Sorry about that. So that's nice. But here's where you have a really, really big issue. So from 100, your next gap is 84 in Stone Tank. So that allows some attack boosting natures to be run, potentially. From there, you jump all the way down to Clefable at 60. And you have you have 4 Mons here that are gapped together at 50, 48, 52, and 50, which makes it really easy for teams to run more bulk when they don't necessarily need the speed for Mons to beat that area. You also have 3 Mons clumped together at 100 speed. So your speed tiers are not very good. That's issue number 1. From an important move standpoint, you're covered very, very solidly here. You have plenty of clerics with Heal Bell, Aromatherapy, Wish, Healing Wish. You have a ton of pivots. You have Volt Switching, you have U-Turn and 2 Mons, you have Baton Pass and different Mons. So you have plenty of ways to momentum yourself around and to put yourself in position. You can heal yourself up pretty well. Your hazard removal is fine. Latios doesn't really want to run it, neither does Volcarona, but Donphan is good spin. Latios could defog if need be. Zapdos is usually a decent defogger. Stunk Tank is a good low-tier defogger. Zapdos has a terrible matchup. You're a little light on the hazard setting. Yeah, you have Clef, Dawn, and Aggron, all very solid, reliable rockers. You don't have any spikes, you don't have any webs, you don't have any T-spikes. Those aren't necessary, but they are nice to have, besides rocks. But you're really good on the removal, the cleric, and the pivot. That's very good with this draft. Hazards, speed tiers, that's kind of an issue. And the last thing I look at is type effectiveness. So you have a slight fire weakness. You are neutral to fighting, but you do have to be very, very aware of that. You have no immunities. A ghost type would be really, really nice, potentially on this team. Like Double Dark, I don't know, but if you could find a ghost type, something that could fit your speed tiers a little better, that would help with the fighting issue. You've got water pretty well handled. Flying is neutral on you. You have grass handled so well. I would not expect HP grasses versus you, or really a lot of grass type. Like you have 5 resistance and 1 that 4x resists in Volcarona. Poison, you've got 2 weak, 2 immune, or 2 weak, 2 resist, and 1 immune, which is fine. You've got electric handled very nicely, including an immunity. You've got a ground immunity and a ground neutral, or resist, to go with 2 ground weaks, but Mega Aggron's also filter, so Mega Aggron you don't really count. You are super, super well covered on Psychic Spam. You have a pretty bad rock weakness. Zap, Volcarona, Sneasel all don't want to take it, with only Aggron and Donphan really resisting rock. This one is also a very, very big thing. Another very offensive type, Ice type. You are severely, severely ice weak. Yes, you have some resistances, but those resistances to ice type moves also don't really appreciate fighting, or ice type moves don't really appreciate some of the other stuff that maybe run against it. So definitely keep an eye. Volcarona is a nice check to ice types, but I don't know if it's the best one because rock is being a major issue with you. Granted, you have decent removal. Bug type, you've got handled 4-3. Generally, when I say you've got handled, I'm looking at, are you neutral? Like you have 4 in the top 2, 4 in the bottom 3, or 2 in the bottom 2, 3 in the, or 3 in the top bottom 3, 2 in the, like, you want to have more resist than weakness. That's when I say covered. Like here, dragon, you're covered, no worries. Ghost, you're more than well covered. Dark, you're more than well covered. Steel, you're more than well covered. Fairy, you're neutral, but that's okay. So, but the biggest issues, Photon, with your roster is your speed tiers, your hazards, and you had a massive rock, ice, and fighting type issue, which is very, very spammable against you. So keep that in mind. I'm sure your battles will show better than that, like that you can overcome these rosters' weaknesses, but that's kind of where I sit with Photon's roster, and I just realized this video is going to be like an hour and a half long or something like that. The next worst roster I actually think is Zippy's, and Zippy came in late, so if you didn't watch the draft stream, just to like fill everybody in, we had Tiny Toons drop out. He just didn't feel like he could do it, was stressed, so he dropped out. And then we had to remove Quag for how he was behaving. And that's all I'm going to say on that. But I do think Zippy taking over Quag's roster, he tried his best to fix it, but I still think it's... caps lock's on. I still think it's not the best roster. Second worst in my mind. And I could be wrong here. Like, as soon as I see this team, I might be like, oh, hey, I was wrong. He actually is pretty decent. I can't spell Jellicent. There we go. Jellicent. Echo. Diggersby. Sorry guys, I should have like put all the rosters in and then just like undone the changes. Okay, so there you go. So you can see his team here. He's got Mega Diancie, Jirachi, Rotom Wash, Selgor, Salazzle, Jellicent, Chimecho, Diggersby, Como-O, Togekiss, Zoroark, and Go-Go. First thing, check the speed tiers. Okay, he's got 145 down into 117. There's not really... When you take something like a Selgor that's 140 or higher, you really... Unless you take like Aerodactyl or something else, you really have a tough time fitting that speed tier. So that's not a big issue. 117 down to 110, that's pretty good. 110 to 100 is good. 100 down to... Or no, he actually goes 110 to 105. And then 105 down to 100. But then we get a gap of 100 down to 86. That's a bit of an issue there. Would have liked to see something base 90, 95, that sort of thing, to jump that gap. Then from 86 we go 85, 85 to 80, 80 to 78. Then 78 down to 68 is okay. It's a little bit on the... It's towards that upper end of that big scale. 68 down to 65 down to 60. So speed tiers are better than Photons. I wouldn't say they're perfect, but they're definitely better than Photons. From an important move standpoint, he's got 2 Spikers, he's got Rocks. Como-O really doesn't want to carry Rocks, though, but Jirachi's a solid rocker. Mega Diancie can carry Rocks, but generally it wants to be more offensive. So, like, another Stealth Rocker might benefit you, maybe not. I do like the fact that you have multiple Spike setters. Diggersby usually doesn't want to be a Spike setter, unless it's more in a defensive role. Hazard removal is one thing I'm going to ding you for, because Togekiss takes chip anyways coming in. Rotom, yes, but then you're kind of forcing Rotom into a defensive role, or forcing it, if it's an offensive Rotom, to carry Defog and lose a move slot potentially. Chimecho, I really don't see Chimecho coming to matches at all, or really that often. So I think hazard removal is kind of something that you should keep in mind. Also, maybe potentially look for a rapid spinner at some point. It's not necessary, but a rapid spinner might benefit you. Granted, you're not really hazard stack on your team, so not having or clearing all hazards is not terrible. Clerics, perfect. Pivots, perfect. A lot of good clerics, a lot of good pivots. Plenty of places to pivot around and get into a spot that you need. Wish Pass support, very, very nice. Como will appreciate that if it gets worn down. Diancie will appreciate that. Heal Bell is always good to clear statuses. But looking at type effectiveness, normal, you're covered. Fire, you are more than well covered. Fighting, you are very well covered. Water, you're covered. Flying is neutral. Grass, you're covered. Poison, you're covered. Electric's covered. You have a massive, and I mean massive, ground issue. EQ spam is going to really, 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 really light you up with a good chunk of your team. Like, it's going to force Zoroark, or not Zoroark. It's going to force either Rotom or Togekiss to come almost every week to prevent getting Quake spammed. That's a pretty like, you're 4v3 with one being, and it's most of your, well, actually, I just realized this sheet takes Rotom Wash and adds that in there. That's not right. So you still have a weakness, but it's not as bad as it initially looked, because I forget that Levitate Mons aren't given their Levitate there. Psychic, you're good. Rock, you're good. Ice, again, similar to Photon. You are neutral, but you do have a very, very big ice weakness to keep track of. Bug, you're good, so you don't have to fear a U-turn too terribly much. Dragon's covered. Ghost, you do have a resistant immunity, but you are Ghost weak. Dark, you're covered. Steel, you're covered. Fairy, you're covered. So you got to watch out for potential Ghost spam. You got to watch out for Ice spam, and you need to watch out for Ground spam. Why am I putting you down this low, even though this team seems a lot more solid? Really, I don't see a lot of like absolute monstrous threats that people. Yes, Como is very dangerous. It can D-dance up and sweep. Jirachi is a paraflincher. If Diancie gets a Diamond Storm boost, it can be very, very difficult. Salazzle is a nasty plotter that can be difficult to deal with. Zoroark is a nasty plotter that can be difficult to deal with, but Salazzle and Zoroark are both incredibly frail. Como, unless carrying coverage, does not appreciate fairy types, and Diancie, Mega Diancie itself, while not terribly weak, does die to like Bullet Punch and other priority Steel type moves very, very easily. And if those Steel types are carrying coverage for Salazzle, I mean, there's going to be some struggle there. I don't know. I personally just think that this roster has a lot that can be done to it to make it better. For example, Zygarde went undrafted. There's a way to make Zygarde fit on this team, potentially, by replacing Diggersby and Como. And that would give you, I believe Zygarde's base 95 speed, if I remember correctly, unless it's Kyurem I'm thinking of. No, it is. Both Zygarde and Kyurem are 95, which would give you that 95 speed stat that I was talking about. But again, your roster, you're the coach. I'm going to wait to see how battles go, and then I'll talk more about it in the quarter season update. So, But yeah, that's gonna be Team 15, Zippy. After Zippy, just looking here real quick. I think Hazard's probably my next lowest here in the Dallas Star Armies. Would take 14th. He's got Mega Aerodactyl. He does have the typical Bulu Lucha. He did draft Bulu Lucha. He has Breloom, he has Crobat, Swamp, Electros, Golisopod, Heat. He has Hoopa, Slowking, Passimian, which does now have Intimidate, and Kangaskhan. So first thing, let's look at speed tiers. Okay, he's got Mega Arrow at 150. Obviously, you can't really fix that too very well, but he goes a 150 down to 130 in Crobat, and then his next fastest mon is Kangaskhan all the way down to 90. So he's got a 40-point gap between Crobat and Kangaskhan. His team is going to be abused very, very easily by base 90 and higher mons. Like his team, outside of having to deal with Arrow and Crobat, which I don't see both coming the same week most of the time. Opposing teams are very, very easily going to be able to run bulk needed to take on Arrow and Crobat, because he has nothing above base 100 besides those two. So speed tiers are very, very poor here. A lot grouped around that 75 to 80 is grouped very well. I mean, yeah, the bottom end of this draft, decent speed tiers, 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70. That's decent. But then 75, 77, 80, 80 is a pretty big chunk grouped up there, especially with having two top-end speed mons. That's not the tab. There we go. You do have Spikes with Golisopod, Heatran with Rocks, which is pretty decent. Swampert's a decent rocker. Arrow does not want to carry that. Arrow also doesn't want to carry Defog, which means Crobat is your Defogger. So your hazard removal is really, really bad. Kangaskhan is your only Cleric, which means you can only Wish. Arrow switches into a Will-O-Wisp, and it's basically screwed. Gets very, very neutered. You can't stop Toxic Stallers. You're not grounded, so you can't remove T-Spikes, which means if you get Hazard stacked with Spikes and Rocks, Crobat has to take a lot of damage to defog. Like, Mega Arrow does not want to carry defog. That thing wants to be offensive, as fast and as powerful as it is. You've got some pivot. You've got 3 pivots, and that's it. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great, with only Volt Switching. 1 Volt Switcher and 2 U-turners. So you can't pivot very well either. So I think team continuity is an issue. Speed tiers, hazards, or hazard removal, clerics, and pivots are really, really bad on this team. And then type effectiveness, you're fine on normal, you're fine on fire, you're fine on fighting, you're fine on water. You have a fly weakness, you're fine on grass, you're fine on poison. You have an electric weakness, you're neutral, but you do have one. Psychic, you're neutral, but you do have an issue. Rock, you're neutral, but that's still pretty good. Ice, you have an ice weakness. Bug is clear. Dragon is clear. Ghost, clear. Dark, clear, steel, clear. You do have a fairy weakness, so you got to watch out for fairy spam. Ice spam is possible, rock spam is possible, electric spam, fly spam. But yeah, really, I think this draft needs some speed, some mid tier speed. It needs some like middle base 100 speed. Yeah, I mean, Bulu-Lucha's cool, Arrow's cool, and I'll list down below the actual ranking too in the description, because I am gonna flip real quick. After seeing Hazard, Photon, and Zippy, I'm gonna move Hazard down to 16th, Photon to 15, and Zippy to 13 or 14. Now that I've thought about it, I think Photon's roster is better now that I've seen the analysis than Hazard's, and Hazard's needs a lot of work in my mind. So, again, I don't mean to be mean. I don't mean to make anybody feel bad. I'm trying to give you guys some constructive feedback here on your rosters, so you guys are aware of what's going on, the things that you need to take a look and watch out for. So that would be, so it's Hazard, and I need to write this down so I don't forget as well, because otherwise I will forget. And then when I go to post this, I need a pen. I'm sorry about the chair squeaks too. I'm at my dad's still. I'm bulk recording a lot, so. So it's Hazard, Photon, and Zippy. So 13th, let's just look at rosters real quick. 13th, I think I'm going to end up putting Murk and the Murk Wolves in 13th, just looking at his roster. He's got Mega Pinsir here, Infernate, Slowbro, Domize, Lisk, Diancie, Standard Diancie, Sableye, he got his mascot. So there's his team. Fastest Mon is 109 in Heliolisk, so I feel like Murk is going to be forced to run some Scarves by not having a Mon above 110 or even 115. Oh, no, duh, he's got Weavile at 125. Never mind, shutting up. He has Weavile at 125, that's decent speed. Problem is Weavile is just very, very frail, with 65 defense, 70 HP. Like, it hits like a truck, but it's frail. That jump down to Heliolisk is a little big. It's 16 points. So someone can slip in between there. 109, 108, 105 for those three. Again, speed tiers, you'll notice, are an issue here. Like, you go 109, 108, 105, then you have no base 100, dropping all the way down to Murkrow at 91, which how often is Murkrow going to come? So in reality, you're dropping from 105 all the way down to 80 with Goodra. You got 30, 40, 2 base 50s, bunch of base, like, I feel like you're going to be forced into Trick Room more than anything else, which Infernape is not very good in Trick Room, nor is Pinsir, because you have so many slow Mons that, like, Steelix good in Trick Room, Uniclus good in Trick Room, Sableye can be good in Trick Room, Delmise can be good in Trick Room, Slowbro puts in work in Trick Room, but the top end of your draft is not like Trick Room. Your Pinsir, your Infernape, your Heliolisk, your Weavile. So I see a lot of speed tier issues here. From important moves, again, similar to Hazard, you have Heal Bell on Diancie and that's it. You have two pivots. You can Volt Switch or you can U-turn. You have two pivots, making it hard. You have Delmise to spin and you have Murkrow to defog. So your hazard removal is very, very poor. Diancie, decent rocker. Pinsir doesn't want to carry rocks. Infernape doesn't want to carry rocks. Steelix, decent rocker, just slow. So you have two decent rockers. You have very poor hazard removal, very poor clerics, very poor pivots. And now I'm thinking maybe I put Murk too high, so probably will adjust this again, and I will go through it at the end. Fire Spam, very, very good against you. Fighting, you actually have very well covered. Water Spam is something to be aware of. Fly, you're neutral. Grass, you've got handled. Poison's handled. Electric types, you've got handled pretty decently. Yeah, you have two immunities to ground, but neither one of those appreciate rock. So Edgequake is still an issue for this team. Psychic types don't want to see you at all. Ice type, you do have an ice weakness, 4-3. Bug, you've got pretty well covered. Dragon, you're covered. Ghost, you're covered. Dark, you're covered. Steel, you're covered. You have a massive, massive, massive fairy weakness. A very, very massive fairy weakness. Hazard's got more removal, doesn't he? No, I'm gonna leave. Yeah. So, yeah, you've got hazard. You've got some typing issues here. You've got hazard issues, and you've got a really bad speed issue. I actually think your speed issue might be worse than hazards. So, again, I'm adjusting. Zippy is 13. Photon is 14. Hazard's moving up to 15. And Murk, I'm putting you in 16 for right now. Just because your roster has a lot more issues than I thought on first inspection. Yeah, sorry about that. I should have sat down and just done this like beforehand, but I'm under so much stress in that I don't know. Just okay, whatever. Next weakest roster, putting them at 12. Let's see here. I'm looking at top row now to make sure I don't miss anything big there. We're gonna go with Crow. Sorry, Crow. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I feel bad. I hate doing PRs for this reason, but Crow, I am gonna put you in 12th for right now. We'll see after I analyze your thing here. Tyranitar, Manaphy. spell that. There it is. Further raid. Metagross. Okay, so first look at Crow, 135 top end speed, very, very nice top end speed, down to 126, so that's a good cover, good close. Problem is from 126 down, your next fastest is Cryogonal at 105, followed by Landorus, Comfey, and Manaphy, all kind of grouped around that 100 speed. Down to Mimikyu at 96. Well, actually, Haxorus at 97, Mimikyu at 96. Roserade at 90. Metagross down at 70 with Hitmontop, and then 61 with T-Tar. So, you have good top-end speed. Talonflame down to Cryogonal is a pretty good gap for things to slip, those base 110s to slip in on you. And having so much of your draft between 96 and 101 is like your clumped speed tier wise right there. And then you kind of abandon them to let things run bulk that can speed creep Hitmontop, but not outspeed the other things, and Metagross as well. So speed tiers are definitely an issue here. Yeah, speed tiers are definitely an issue here. That's something to keep an eye on. From an important move standpoint, Landorus as a rocker is not bad. Metagross is a decent rocker. Roserade is good for spikes and T-spikes. T-Tar is actually not bad for a rocker, because T-Tar can be offensive or defensive. Hazard removal is very clean. Comfey doesn't mind running defog some weeks. Talonflame does not want to be your defogger. Lando can be defog if it's defensive, like a Rocks defog defensive set. Cryogonal is good for getting rid of spikes and T-spikes. It does not appreciate rocks. Hitmontop, on the other hand, is good for getting rid of rocks. Doesn't appreciate T-spikes and spikes. Roserade, solid for removing T-spikes, so good stealth rocks, or good hazard setters, good hazard removals. From a cleric standpoint, Comfey, Manaphy. Manaphy usually doesn't want to run Heal Bell, but Manaphy can absorb those statuses as long as rain is up, because hydration. Roserade with Aromatherapy, Comfey with Aromatherapy, pretty good. You have 5 different Volt Turners, so you can pivot very nicely. So from that aspect of this roster, very solid. I like it. Speed tiers are your biggest hamper right now. Looking at type effectiveness, you're covered on normal, you're covered on fire, you're covered on fighting, you're covered on water, you're covered on flying, you're covered on grass, poison's covered, electric's covered. You do have a pretty decent ground weakness with only Landorus and Talonflame. Talonflame does not appreciate rocks. So really, Landorus is your only extremely good Quake preventer. But if those Quakers carry an Ice move, or Earth Powers carry an Ice move, like Hidden Power Ice or something, Landorus will not appreciate that. Psychic's good. Rock is good. Ice is neutral, which is good. Bug is covered. Dragon's covered. Ghost, you have a Ghost weakness. Dark, you're fine. Fairy, you're neutral. Steel, you're neutral. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to give away the cheekiness of your team. I didn't give it away in the draft stream. At least I don't think I gave it away in the draft stream. So I'm not going to give away the cheekiness there. You do have an element that's going to surprise people. Sorry, brain just farted. there's a cheeky bit to this team. Obviously, I can see Manaphy wanting to be the Z-Rain dance set at times, but and Mega Main will appreciate 100% Thunders, but your speed tiers are an issue, and that's why I've got you ranked kind of low. Is just solely because your speed tiers really, you're too fast. Like, you versus Murk just brings Trick Room, and then you're in a lot of pain unless you run like min speed Metagross or something like that. So again, I mean no harm, no foul to anybody, but Crow, I think that's where your roster sits. Following you, I'm gonna end up putting, I think, Luke here and the Eaton Electivires. Yes, he's got some scary stuff on his team, particularly having Scissor and Victini. Mega Scissor and Victini, that's a very good pair. But after that, this roster is not as impressive to me as some of the others. Standard Kyurem. The Xatu comments are coming because Lord Xatu or whatever. Okay, so he's rocking out with Mega Scissor, Victini, Cresselia, Crocodile, Kyurem, Xatu, Sock, Raikou, Araquanid, Gardevoir, Amoonguss, and Yanmega. First thing, check speed tiers. 115 is your fastest. It's not terrible. 115 down to 100 is a decent gap. It'll allow some things like Infinite and that to potentially not have to be running Timid or some. They can run some Bulk or whatever, but they can slip in. From there, you drop down to Kyurem and Xatu and Yanmega all at 95. A little bit of a gap there. You got a couple at 85 as well. Biggest issue is going from Mega Scissor down to Araquanid and Amoonguss. Like, you've got a major... Like, the bottom two Mons on your roster for speed are kind of just left alone right there. Which is not the greatest thing in the world. So speed tiers, again, clumped speed tiers. That being an issue. You only have two hazard setters in Sticky Webs with Araquanid and Crook with Rocks, both of which you can carry and not be terrible. Which makes me feel like you're going to rely on Xatu a lot coming each game in order to magic bounce those hazards back on your opponent. Like, Sticky Webs, Victini with Sticky Webs is not bad at all. That's pretty decent, actually. Stealth Rocks is always appreciative. Your hazard removal, Scissor doesn't necessarily want to carry it, nor does Yanmega. So Xatu is kind of pressured to be your main hazard removal. So hazards are an issue. From a cleric standpoint, you're not terrible. Heal Bell, Gardevoir is not bad. Xatu and Gardevoir can wish. Cresselia always able to wish, which is unfortunate that it's a suicide wish, but you know, that's not bad. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Mons that can either U-turn or Baton Pass. Or Volt Switch around, which is very good. So you're good on the pivots, you're good on the clerics, your removal, your hazards, your speed tiers are the big issue here. As far as effectiveness goes, normal, no big deal. Fire, you have a fire weakness. You need to be very, very careful of fire spam. Fighting does not really do anything to you. Water, you're fine. You have a big fire flying, like Crow's Talonflame will just rip through your team. you have a big fire flying issue. Grass, you're covered. Poison, you're covered. Electric, you're covered. Ground, covered. Psychic, more than well handled. You have a pretty bad rock issue. Fire, flying, rock, ice, ghosts, dark types, fairy types, or neutral steel types. So dark, ghost, ice, rock, flying, and fire types are going to rip through you. So you do need to be very, very aware of that. Stealth rocks are definitely going to come against you a lot just because your team is super, super weak to them. And you don't have the best removers. So just be very, very aware of that. This team is solid, but again, it's definitely not top tier team. And I'm going to flip Crow and Luke, actually, now that I think about it. Crow's got a slightly better roster than Luke. So sorry about that, Luke and Crow. Again, I'll post this down below, who's where in all this. So, but yeah. So filling into, that's your bottom 6, going into 10th. It pains me to do this, it really does, but I have to put a sand team in 10th, and that would be Park. And I'll explain why here as soon as I get him loaded here. Okay, so he's got Mega Chomp, Mew, Milotic, Galvantula, Umbreon, Aromatisse, Piloswine, Hippowdon, Entei, Alakazam, Golbat, and Staraptor. Speed tiers, okay, 120 with Alakazam, not bad. Drop down to Galvantula. Again, not bad. 12, 13 is usually the mark you want to avoid, but 12 is not bad. Then you drop down to Mew and Staraptor at 90. Again, not bad. From there, you drop to Garchomp at 92. Not bad. 92 down to 90 in Golbat. Again, not terrible. 90 down to 81. Not bad. 81, though, then down to 65. 50, 47, 50. Bit of an issue. Like a base 70 Mon would be nice on this roster, but not necessary. So, speed tiers overall are pretty clean. This is better than some of the other speed tiers I've seen. Still a few issues, but not terrible. From an important move standpoint, hazards, perfect. Galvantula, Sticky Webs. Sticky Webs Mega Chomp under Sand is so, so good. Mega Chomp can be potentially the D-League kill leader if played and prepped correctly. And I know from experience because Mega Garchomp is my all-time kill leader. Not counting Alolan Ninetales and Zeraora, who I've used in multiple leagues. So Sticky Webs is very, very good. Mega Garchomp is not going to carry Stealth Rocks. That's given. Hippowdon doesn't mind carrying them. Pylo doesn't mind carrying them. Mew, depending on the set, couldn't care about carrying them or not. Your Defog's a little bit of an issue. Golbat being your main defogger. Mew might be forced into a defensive role on this team, having to carry Defog some weeks, or Rocks potentially. Staraptor doesn't want to Defog. Staraptor really only appreciates being slapped with like a Choice Band or a Life Orb and going and blowing stuff up. Staraptor's kind of a one-trick pony in my mind at times. So it's not going to want to carry defog. So your hazard removal is a little weak. But having Web's Garchomp with Rock Chip, clean. You're good there as far as hazard setters go. Clerics, you're very good. You got Mew with Heal Bell, Umbreon with Heal Bell, Aromatisse can Heal Bell, Aromatisse can Aromatherapy if it doesn't want to carry Heal Bell instead. You have two very good Wish Passers. Mega Chomp will greatly appreciate Wish passing from those two, as well as Heal Bell, because the best way to neuter a Mega Garchomp is to poison it or burn it. Actually, you can parry it too. Yeah, any status on Mega Chomp is not good. So being able to remove that with Heal Bell, being able to heal it up and Wish Pass to it, also very good. Putting it under webs like Mega Garchomp. This team is built to support Mega Garchomp, which I greatly appreciate. It can pivot into Mega Garchomp, like Evangelist, that's webs, then pivots into Hippowdon. Hippowdon switch into Mega Chomp, and you go from there. You have U-turners, Baton Pass. Something to keep in mind for Park: Rock Polish Baton Pass Mew into Mega Chomp. Just keep that in mind. You don't even need Sand at that point. Just Rock Polish Baton Pass into Garchomp and bye-bye. Because Garchomp's got base 174 attack stat. So something to keep in mind. Umbreon with a White Herb could Curse Pass into Garchomp, give it +1 attack, +1 defense. Also not a bad thing. Keep in mind. Type effectiveness, fire types are covered, fighting types are covered. Water is an issue for you. You do need to keep an eye on your water hits. Grass, you're covered. Poison, you're more than well covered. Electric, you have 3 immunities, so you're very well covered. Ground is not an issue for you. Psychic is not an issue for you. Rock is an issue for you. You do need to be careful of rock. Stealth rocks are definitely probably coming every week versus you if they can. So watch that. Ice, you have another really big ice weakness. Unfortunately, with the way you went about with your sand with Hippowdon, Mega Chomp, you're ice weak. So keep an eye on that. Bug, you're covered. Dragon, you're covered. Ghost, you're covered. Dark, you're covered. Steel, you're covered. Fairy, you're covered. So why do I have Park ranked 10th? Mainly because he's forced into defensive Mew a lot. And his biggest issue with Sandsweeper Chomp, which I've run into, extremely bulky water types. Your team does not appreciate water types, and you don't really have a good grass type to break those water types with. Maybe look at investing in a lower tier grass type to do that, to break that potentially, like Pumpkaboo would be pretty nice. Granted, it gives you another ghost weakness, but a good grass type down low that can handle those bulky waters. So Galvantula isn't forced to do it every week would be very, very nice. And the other issue that Sandsweeper Chomp struggles with is bulky grass types. Bulky water is bulky grass. Those two are the two that stand in the way. I don't think Entei is the best fire type for this team. I think there needed to be a different fire type. Entei will handle those bulky fire types, but the problem is Entei does not have a lot of diversity in what it wants to run because it doesn't have Earthquake. So keep in mind that potential issues of water. Water is definitely an issue for you, but bulky grass types are also going to stand in your way. So, but yeah, that's Park for you there. I do like his sand team. Like, I wish I had thought about this team more when I did my sand over in PCF, but it is what it is. So after this, I'm going to say Jackson is probably 9th for me. Jackson and the Mississippi Metagross here. I'll get his team loaded here. No, sorry, I was looking at the wrong team. Okay, so there's this team. Mega Mawile, Toxapex, Hydreigon, Rotom, Heat, Espeon, Electrovire, Claydol, Tangrowth, Darmanitan, Mienshao, Gligar, and Gengar. As far as speed tiers go, 110. He's got 2 Mons at 110, which is not terrible. If he could have gotten something at 115 or higher, that would have been nice, but Espeon and Gengar are pretty good. And Gengar definitely is a decent Scarfer. Espeon not so much, but that's okay. From 110, dropping down to 105, and Mienshao is not bad. Down to 98, and Hydreigon also not bad. 95's not bad. 95 down to 86, not bad. 86 down to 85, not bad. 85 to 70. Like, his speed, you get the point. Speed tiers are decent. He's missing a little on the top end speed, but that's not terrible. One key thing to see: boom, boom, boom. He has a very, very solid regen core in Toxapex, Tangrowth, and Mienshao. It's going to be hard to wear this team down outside of statusing it. Which, Heal Bell Espeon's the only cleric, so status is definitely something to worry about. Espeon is the only Wish Passer. As far as hazards go, Claydol, Mega Mall does not want to run Stealth Rocks. Claydol is fine running Stealth Rocks, but Claydol is not a very good Mon in my mind, and you do have Toxapex for obvious T-Spikes. Claydol the Rapid Spin. Oh, Gligar does get Rocks. I don't know why the sheet doesn't list Gligar for Rocks. Gligar is a good Stealth Rocker. Gligar is probably your better option as a Stealth Rocker over Claydol. Defensive Gligar just can work very well because it defogs Hydreigon. Can carry defog if it needs to. Rotom Heat, pretty decent defogger, except it doesn't appreciate rocks. Claydol is a unmon in my opinion, so again, Claydol not very good. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Mons that out of 12 that can pivot. So this team is going to pivot around very, very fast, very, very often. That's what really makes this team pretty solid, is its ability to pivot across the board and get into its setup get into its threats very, very easily. It's going to put pressure on the opponent to constantly have to be switching, allowing for setup potential, allowing for wear down chip from Stealth Rocks and T-Spikes potentially. So it's very, very good. As far as pivoting goes, we get to type effectiveness. Normal's covered, fire's covered, fighting is covered. You do have a water weakness that you have to keep in mind. Your team does not really appreciate water types. Granted, Tangrowth takes care of bulky waters pretty well, unless they're carrying ice coverage. Flying types you're covered. Grass types don't want to see you. Poison types don't really want to see you. Electric types don't want to see you. You have a very, very massive ground weakness. Excluding Rotom there, because Rotom does not count, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ground weak Mons with 2 immunities and 1 resist. Ground types are definitely you're gonna have to watch out for Quake and power spam. Like, ground types just kind of have a field day versus you. Oh, I guess you have 3 immunities because Hydreigon also isn't listed as an immunity. Still, you gotta watch out for Quake spamming. Psychic types you have handled. Rock types you have handled. ice types you have handled. Bug is handled. Dragon's neutral. You have a pretty decent ghost weakness. Bear that in mind. Similarly, dark types can do some damage. Granted, you do have a 3 more resist. Steel types want nothing to do with you, nor do fairy types. So, with Jackson, his speed tiers are not terrible. They're not the greatest. His hazards aren't terrible. They're not the greatest. He has a pretty good... He's got his type coverage pretty decent. Obviously, he struggles with a few things. So, all in all, that's why Jackson kind of sits as a neutral Mon. A neutral spot here, neutral Mon. So, moving on, 8th place here. Probably going to give 8th here to MommaNeesh and the West Texas, no, not 8th for Mama. Luka. Luka, I'm going to put you in 8th here, and I'll explain why. Alright, so there's Luka's team. Mega Kangaskong, Torn T, Superior, Zygarde 10, Arcanine Gastro, Avalugg, Mudsdale, Klefki, Musharna, Latios, and Alolan Muck. Her team is definitely split in two. Just looking at her speed tiers, she's got the 121, the 115, the 113, the 110, the 100, the 95. So she has like a top speed tier team, and then she has a very bottom out speed tier team, with Klefki kind of sitting right there in the middle. With Musharna, there is a very, very solid Trick Room potential team there with like Trick Room Mudsdale, Trick Room Avalugg, Trick Room Alolan Muck potentially. Like, she has the ability to hit you super, super fast or hit you super, super slow in Trick Room. So there's that. That's not terrible in my mind. As far as important moves go, hazards are a big, big problem for you. You don't... For him. Hazards are just a big, big problem for him, for Luka. He's got spikes on Klefki, which is Prankster. So, barring a dark type, he guarantees to get spikes up first before taking a hit. And Mudsdale is a solid rocker. Mudsdale is definitely a solid rocker. But there's nothing else as far as hazards go after that. Hazard removal. Avalugg doesn't appreciate getting worn down, so it's not the best rapid spinner. Latios doesn't really want to carry Defog. Superior doesn't really want to carry Defog. Tornadus doesn't really want to carry Defog, which kind of, again, forces Klefki. So hazard removal, not the greatest. You're going to be forced to carry hazard removal on something that potentially wants to set up and sweep. Clerics are very good. Latios and Musharna committing Seppuku to heal is not terrible. Mega Kanga and Latios both are decent Wish Passers. Again, that's kind of forcing Latios into a support role. Unfortunately, Superior is your only aromatherapy mon. Musharna can heal Bell. Like, a defensive Musharna could be pretty decent on this team. A trick, if you want to run Trick Room as well, type of thing. Pivots are not great. Yeah, his pivot situation, like, the reason this team is higher, because I know there's some type effectiveness issues too. Normal's covered, fire's covered, fighting's covered. Water is neutral, flying is neutral, grass is covered, poison is covered, electric is covered. Ground is an issue, psychics are covered, rocks neutral, no, rock is covered. Massive ice weakness, bug is neutral, dragon is an issue, ghost is covered, dark is covered, steel is covered, fairy is covered. There is a massive, massive ice issue with this team. There's a lot of issues with this team, but why is it ranked higher than Jackson Park, Crow, Luke, and Zippy? Solely because this team is going to be a little bit of a challenge to prep for. Yeah, they don't have hazards for Chip. Yeah, they don't, Luka, he doesn't have hazards for Chip. That sort of thing. But does it really matter when he can set up super, super fast on you and just beat you down? He's forcing Scarfers. He's literally forcing a ton of Scarfers to come every week. Like, something has to come Scarfed, and then pretty much has to carry a Scarfed Icer pretty much has to come. And if his opponent brings a Scarfed Icer and knows that, and Trick Room looks good, okay, bring Trick Room, your Scarfer is useless now. Like, definitely has two different teams here, which forces prep to be a little difficult. Speed or no speed type of thing. So, that's why I have Luka higher than some of these other teams, but that's just me. Now I'm going to put MommaNeesh here. So Luka was 8th. MommaNeesh, I'm putting at 7th. I'll get her team loaded here. She has Latios Mega. I still wish you had kept Charizard X, but, you know, whatever. Zeraora, no hard feelings. Gliscor. Bombi. Chestnut, roasting on an open fire, not Chespin. Chestnuts, roasting on an open fire. Registeel. Chatot, Angry Screamy Burb. Volcanion. MommaNeesh herself, the Nidoqueen. Vaporeon, Lincoln Rock, and Rodriguez. So, first thing, speed tiers, not bad. 143 obviously is something really hard to close that gap with, but getting Rabombi is not that bad either for closing that. Down to 112 in Lycanroc. Not bad, down to 110 in Latios. Then there's a little issue, there's no base 100, so from Latios you drop down to Gliscor. And then from there, a base 80 would be nice, not necessary. This team, I know a lot of people are going to be like, why do you have this team ranked this high? This team is fat. This team is incredibly fat. Gliscor, Chestnut, Registeel, Volcanion, and Cofagrigus, all stupidly defensively fat. Registeel is also specially fat, as is Megalotti. Cofagrigus isn't terrible. Vaporeon's not terrible as far as Spadef goes. Like, Momma has a very, very forgiving team. She can make plenty of mistakes and not be screwed by said mistakes because her team is fat and forgiving. And she has offensive threats in Latios and Zera. Gliscor can be an offensive threat. Rabombi can be an offensive threat. Volcanion can be a very offensive, threatening mon. I mean, just look at its 130 special attack. Nidoqueen can be an offensive threat. Cofagrigus and Trick Room is obviously a threat. Hazard setters, super, super good. Every single one of her hazard setters can carry a hazard and not worry about it. Hazard removal. Gliscor, Volcanion, Rabombi are not necessarily... Gliscor is okay. Gliscor can carry that. Megalodios doesn't want to carry it. Chatot, if it comes, can carry it, but Gliscor is okay. Based on this team, Gliscor can be okay defogging. Same with Volcanion, same with Rabombi. Clerics, you've got a very good Wish Passer and Vaporeon that can also heal buff for you. Pivots, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different mons that can pivot, allowing her to move around from defense to offense pretty easily, or offense to defense pretty easily. So I really, really like Mama's team. I think it's solid. She's got normal type checked, fire checked, water or fighting check, water check, flying check, grass check, poison check, electric is checked. Ground is a very, very big weakness. You have a very, very bad ground issue that you have to be aware of. Ground types can put in a lot of work with Gliscor and Chatot being your only immunities. Rock is neutral. Ice is another big, big issue. Like, ground ice type is just going to get you. Bug is handled. Dragon handled. Ghost handled. Ghost actually have a weakness too. Dark handled. Steel handled. Fairy handled. So you have to really watch out for ice types. Especially freeze shock or freeze dry ice type, because Volcanion won't appreciate that. And you have to watch out for ground. So very, very much have to keep that in mind. Granted, Latios is an immunity. Gliscor is an immunity. Chatot's an immunity. So you've got the ability to run around it. You just have to be careful. But Mama, I think this is probably the best team Mama has drafted in her 3 seasons of WWC. This is definitely the best team I've seen her draft. It's just got some issues, which is why I'm not putting it higher than 7th. So, coming into 6th, I'm going to put Marse in 6th, and his Egyptian Lucarios. Sorry, I know my remaining now, so I'm just writing them in right now. Okay, got those in. Okay, so Marse, here at 6th. Honestly, this is taking too much time. We're already probably like an hour and a half into this, hour and 13 minutes into this, so I'm going to stop with the prep help thing. Sorry, it's just, nobody's going to want to watch this video at this point, so. Coming in at 6th, we have Marse with Mega... can not even be seen? Yes, okay, Marse can be seen. The remaining teams can be seen, so we're fine. Marse here, with his Megalodios, Celesteela, Sylveon, Incineroar, Decidueye, Kamala, Rotom Frost, Suicune, Terrakion, Nidoking, Golem, and Scyther. He's super, super bulky with Megalodi, Celesteela, Sylveon. Like, that's pretty ridiculous bulk. Suicune is pretty bulky. Speed tier wise, I know Terrakion is 108, Megalodios is 110. I don't think he's got something faster than that off the top of my head. Scyther probably is faster. No, it's not. Scyther's not fast. Yeah, it is. Just go look at Cerebi real quick. Base 105. Okay, so Scyther is up there. Scyther fits in between there. So he doesn't have top end speed, but that's not terrible. Kamala is a nice status sponge. Also very good rapid spinner. Takes care of T-spikes because it can't be toxic. So he's got a good rapid spinner there. Decidueye can defog. Latias can defog, but it doesn't really want to do that. Nidoking absorbs T-spikes. Scyther can defog if it wants. The problem, Rotom can defog. Rotom and Scyther don't appreciate rocks, though. Sylveon's a nice cleric. It also can Wish Pass into Celesteela or Latias if need be. He does have Intimidate in Incineroar. Terrakion is a very good Scarfer, as is Nidoking. Terrakion can also set up very, very easily. His rocking situation is a little bad because Nidoking, Terrakion, and Golem are his only rockers, which is either going to force Golem to come to rock, or Terrakion or Nidoking has to carry rocks. I mean, Nidoking can carry rocks if it needs to, but not the best situation for it to have to carry rocks. Generally, it wants to have 4 coverage move. Like, it has such a wide move pool that coverage is better on it, but it is what it is. Suicune is very, very fat and can be a setup threat as well. And Incineroar is a good pivot mon with Intimidate as well. So, after Marse, I'm placing Rysachi and the Surrey Sawsbucks at 5th, with Mega Venusaur, Aegislash, Greninja, Snorlax, Uxie, Seismitoad, Hitmonchan, Florges, Thundy, Nihilego, Volibee, and Turtonator. Mega Venusaur is fat. Aegislash is a threat. It is allowed to run King Shield and can be a Z Crystal. Granted, he didn't make it a Z user, so. But it is fat. It is capable of being, or it is a threat. Greninja gives him that 122 speed. Thundy is also decently fast. Thundy has Prankster as well, so Prankster Tailwind, Prankster Defog. Nihilego is good speed tier. Like, his top end speed is pretty well balanced. Uxie at 95. My biggest issue here, like, his hazard setters, Seismitoad is a good rocker. Uxie is a good rocker. Greninja gives him spikes and T-spikes. I don't know how often those want to carry it. Nihilego gives him a good T-spiker and rocker, potentially. As far as removal goes, Hitmonchan is not a very good rapid spinner. Florges can defog, and then it can aromatherapy to deal with any poison it takes, or Wish Pass, so it's a decent cleric. Uxie does not have Heal Bell. Yeah. Volibee is a potential defogger. Volibee with Eviolite is a wall. It's not the wall, but it is a wall. As far as type effectiveness goes, I'm not going to worry about that, so just because we're an hour and 20 minutes into this video already. Yeah, it's a very good team. It does have very good defense and offensive synergy. I just don't think it's as good as some of the other teams, which it's good. Like, it's top 5, but it's not as good as these top 4 ones are. So moving into your top 4, we have Penguin and the Chicago Claunchers with a rain team, and it is solidly a rain team with Mega Swampert, Tapu Koko, Ferrothorn, Politoed, Kingdra, Miltank, Armaldo, Mamoswine, Azelf, Hawlucha, Magmortar, and Lucario. Tapu Koko in Rain, I am not a fan of at all. I prefer Zeraora in Rain solely because Volt Absorb. But Penguin does have the ability to deal with it. He has Mamoswine, which is immune, Ferrothorn, which resists, Swampert, which resists, or is immune, so he can handle that issue. The big thing that Rain teams struggle with is bulky grass types, freeze-dry users, and trying to think what the other issue. Well, fellow bulky water types. So, grass type handled Ferrothorn's neutral, so it can switch into the hits. Miltank is clean on this team. Miltank is very, very good for a rain team because it has access to the ability Sap Sipper. So it can switch in, get an attack boost, and then start hitting really, really hard. It can function as a good cleric with Heal Bell. It has recovery and Milk Drink itself. So I really, really like Miltank on this team. As far as rockers go, Ferrothorn is a decent rocker spike setter. Miltank can set rocks. Mamo is a decent rocker. Azelf is a good suicide lead rocker. Armaldo can set rocks. Armaldo is on the slow side, but even in rain, I've seen Armaldo just shred teams in the rain with like Swift Swim plus Swords Dance. It can put in a ton of work. He does have quite a few Swift Swimmers in Swampert, in Kingdra, in Armaldo, in Ludicolo. His main issue is that he has several mons sitting at base 70 speed that are Swift Swimmers, that being Ludi, Swamp, and Politoad. A lot of people question Mamoswine on this team. Mamoswine kills this team without Mamoswine. Because Mamoswine could be cheeky and run Freeze Dry, and that rips through his entire team. Coco doesn't like EQ. Ferrothorn doesn't appreciate multiple EQs. Armaldo doesn't appreciate EQ. Halucha doesn't appreciate Icicle Crash. Knockoff from it does not go well for Azelf. Magmortar doesn't like EQ. Like, Mamoswine was clutch pick on this team. And then Magmortar is the other thing. Magmortar breaks those bulky grass types that water types for Swift Swimmers have a lot of issues with. He does have pivots as well. I forgot to mention he does have several pivots in Halucha, Azelf, and Coco can all pivot around. Magmortar has such a nice move pool, such a, like, it has access, it can run Poisonium Z, it can run Grassium Z, Fightium Z, Firium Z, Electrium Z. It can be a physical setup set with Belly Drum. It can be a special spec set, a Life Orb set. Magmortar is very, very good down low. It's just slow at 83 speed. The biggest knock on Penguin right now, and it's unfortunate because he got sniped on both Torn Ts, or on Torn T and Tornadus. Both Torns going killed him here. He does not have good hazard removal. Armaldo's kind of forced to come and carry Rapid Spin. Otherwise, he's got a defog on Coco, or he's got a defog on Halucha. That is the biggest drawback to this rain team, is that he is forced to have Halucha or Coco potentially defog. So, sliding into third, I have Delphox and the Dallas Crowbats, and I know this is going to catch a lot of people, and they're going to be like, why is this team ranked high? This team is ranked high not because of Alolan Ninetales. I don't want to hear those comments about, hey, Alolan Ninetales, Zach ranked it high. That's not why. This team is incredibly well built. He has solid defog and rocking options in Empoleon, Mesprit, Savali, Lando T can be defensive. Sableye, once it megas, is a very good deterrent for hazards because of Magic Bounce. His speed tiers, yes, Alolan or Scolipede being the fastest is not the greatest, but he can baton pass speed from Scully to assist with that. Ninetales gives him access to Veil. If someone wants to try and defog that and Veil and all that, he just brings in Empoleon. Or webs are up, Empoleon comes in, gets a Defiant boost, and can be a very, very big pain. Lando can pivot with Intimidate. Blaziken can be hard-hitting. It's not speed boost, but it still can hit very, very hard. Meganium, low-tier grass that gives access to screens as well. Tyrantrum can be a very good setup sweeper. Savali gives him every single type under the sun. Vikavolt is very, very powerful. Not a lot of things can switch into Vikavolt hits. Same with Clauncher, with Mega Launcher. And while I would like... I know he's got a rock weakness, which is why I advised against adding Megazard X at this point, because Megazard X would look so nice on this team, but hazards are an issue. Rocks are specifically an issue, so I would suggest not right now unless you fix your rock weakness elsewhere, type of thing. Mega Sableye is a very, very good rate Mega, and for giving you 40 points and not having to first turn Mega, it's very, very dangerous, because you just bring Prankster Sableye to begin with. If there's no Dark type, you very, very easily get a Calm Mind or two up, and then you can recover. Assuming that he doesn't have something that can status you right away. You're guaranteed one Calm Mind, barring a Dark type. You're guaranteed a Calm Mind, then you Mega Evolve, and you can't be Toxic. And literally all you have to deal with is Fairy types. Which, once you remove the Fairy type, Sableye can just go ham. It can just be super, super effective and rip through a team. If played correctly, Sableye can just rip through a team. But that's why I have Delphox there. Geiran is my second best team, with Megamedi, Kyurem Black, Magnezone, Tornadus, Lycanroc, Dusk, Rotom-Mow, Spiritomb, Tapu Fini, Typhlosion, Skarmory, Malamar, and Girder. Hazards, Torrentee, decent hazard remover outside of rocks, doesn't really appreciate it. Rotom-Mow could care less about any hazards because it resists rock. Tapu Fini's not bad for defog. Skarmory doesn't really care about much as far as defogging. Skarmory has a decent amount of hazards it can stack up, Lycanroc can set rocks if need be. That's one of his big issues, though, is he doesn't have a lot of hazard activates. His speed tiers are pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're very good. He's such an offensive threat with Megamedi, Kyurem Black. That just hits super, super hard. Scarfed Eruption Typhlosion is also a very, very hard hitter. Malamar with Contrary can set up and start going to town very, very quickly. It's a solid, solid draft. It's not as solid as his Season 2 draft with Celesteela and Mega Lopunny. And then Regen Core, but this is probably one of the best teams as far as offensive powerhouse goes. I really do like Geiran's team, and that's why I've got him in second. And finally, our first place team, after an hour and a half of discussing this, is AV and his Vegas Vulpix. This team is just solid. Solidly built. Mega Lopunny, Garchomp, Necro, Prima, Chandelure, Drapion, Kecleon, Scizor, Mandibuzz, Jolteon, Zarina, and Quagsire. Mega Lopunny, Garchomp, Necro. What the hell is that for an offensive core? That is just nightmarish. Necro being physical special can be a rocker. Garchomp, with it being a Z Captain, Z Sandstorm is an option. Garchomp goes to town, just blows something back. Mega Lopunny, fast, blows things back. Primarina is pretty thick, but also can be very, very good with choice specs. Chandelure, very good Z user, specs user. Not a lot of things can check into it. Its special attack is just as high as Vikavolt, which allows it to punch holes. He's got T-Spikes and Drapion. Drapion can set up as a Swords Dancing set. Kecleon is a good rocker with different coverage techniques. Scizor can be a monster with Garchomp paired. It can be a very good monster setup sweep. He's forced people to run Hidden Power Ice or Hidden Power Fire because of Garchomp and Scizor. If they choose Hidden Power Fire, they have to be careful with Chandelure because Chandelure has Flash Fire. Chandelure also gets through substitutes, so with Infiltrator, his offense is very, very good. Jolteon gives him 130 speed, which makes him have something close to Lopunny to help there. Zarina can Rapid Spin, also no priority with Queensley Magistry. It can also rapid spin. Has aromatherapy. It can be a cleric. Quagsire is bulky with unaware. It can be about as annoying as Clefairy at times, and he's got things to check into grass type hits to protect it. And finally, AV has the Wall, Mandibuzz, which does not appreciate some hits, but if built correctly, it's fine. And he has a Jolteon, so Electrium Z can't be fired off on it and kill it. So it's good. I love AV's team. I love how it's built. It's about as solid of a team as I can see of the D-League coaches, and that's why I think it's the best. So the final PRs, now that I've gone through this over the last hour and a half, is AV at 1, Geiran at 2, Delphox at 3, Penguin at 4, Rysachi at 5, Marse at 6, Mama at 7, Luka at 8, Jackson at 9, Park at 10, Crow at 11, Luke at 12, Zippy at 13, Photon at 14, Hazard at 15, and Murk at 16. If you guys made it to the end of this video, props to you. 100% amazed that you were able to do that. I will throw this order down below as well. Please check out the links in the description down below. Discord, best place to hang out with the D-League coaches and myself outside of these videos. Twitch, you can go follow me on Twitch for streaming and all that. Trying to think what else. Luka, go show him some love. Hazard's YouTube channel will be down there as well. I think he's the only one that gave me a YouTube channel, so go check him out. And yeah, hour and a half done. I'm gonna go prep for the D-League draft stream because I'm doing that later today. I'll see you guys later.
We'll be right back.